Welcome back. Today we're going to take a look at how tight do screw-on pivot screws and what to look for when they're too tight versus too loose, both on saxophone and clarinet. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and we'll get right to it right now. Okay, what we have here is my Yamaha 62 purple label. When I first got this, everything, the keys have good motion, everything. Right now on the G key, I took the spring off. You can see it sitting right here. But you can see it moves fairly freely up and down. But when I first got it, this is how it was. You see there's no motion in it right now. You can see by tightening the pivot screw, there's no motion in it right now. If I add the spring back on, we now have motion, but to me, it's not very fast. Now I'm going to slowly, so now watch this. See how slow it is? As I slowly unscrew it a bit, response becomes a lot faster. I'm going to tighten it again. See how slow it is? So I loosen it a bit, I can hit it a lot faster. So we can see how that impacts, the movement. Even though it still plays, see I just undid the spring, you can see it's still too tight. Now that's exactly where it should be. Now there's instances where the pivot screw needs to have a little bit of purple Loctite to make sure it doesn't back off over time. But we want it to have free motion without the screw on it. And that's going to be the best for speed and feel for the player that you want it to be at. Now this also happens for clarinets. For instance, this key here has a pivot screw here and has a pivot screw here with a long rod screw that goes to the pivot screw. So I can feel that there's a drag on the key. I'll move this up a bit. Now there's a lot less drag on it, just by a quarter of a turn or less. To my feel now, the springs back a lot easier now. The only thing you have to watch out for instance on the saxophone, is if you make it too loose, this key may move up and down on the rod, but this one doesn't. This one is nice and tight, so it doesn't move. And if it does move up and down, normally it needs some swedging here, or what I like to do in many cases, like see this arm is too close to the end where you can't really swedge it. You gotta fill it with some tin solder and then cut it back out. I'm gonna leave that for another video though. But here's a quick example of how to make properly tension pivot screws for key movement on both saxophone and clarinet. I hope that's informative for you for learning how to adjust pivot screws to look at the key work without the spring on it, and then to add the spring and see it's a lot faster. It'll be better for the player, and they may not know it, but their key work will work faster for them. There's many times I play some really fast pieces where the keywork has to respond as quickly as it can go. As a matter of fact, that's one reason I prefer my Mark 7 over my Mark 6, is it has stiffer springs from the factory and the keywork rebounds a lot quicker. But just one of those little minor things. If you don't have multiple horns, you probably would never know the difference. Anyways, don't forget to give a thumbs up, like, share, and subscribe, and we'll see you later.